What is up, everybody?
Hey, everybody. It is Scotch for Dummies.
4 guys in the Scotch journey to help you with your next Scotch purchase. But today, something special is happening.
Special guest.
And I'm special guests. Single malt is the key to all of this.
It is.
And that's what we like to talk about. That's our bread and butter.
It is.
Absolutely. And today I want to welcome 2 special guests, 2 blenders from 2 traditions, Bushmills, the oldest distillery in the world, and Stranahan's pioneers of the American single malt. So, Alex.
So I'm Alex Thomas, master blender at the old Bushmills distillery. We granted our license way back on the 20th of April, 1608. So we've been making whiskey for just a few years. We have blends, we have single malts, and we are delighted to say we now have one of the oldest ever released in our 46-year-old. So we're continuing to strive to grow the Irish category the best way we can by creating brilliant whiskies.
Alex, that's got to be a joy to try to give an elevator pitch on a 400-year-old.
She's kind of a cheat code. 15 seconds, go.
You had to cut a few hundred years out of there.
Well, I have a little bit shorter timeline here, so I always get to say I'm Justin Aden. My title is head blender with Stranahan's American Single Malt here in Denver, Colorado. We were one of the first American craft whiskey distilleries, and we're a little unique in that from day one, we've made 100% malted barley whiskey only, never anything else. Fast forward to today, we're the most awarded #1 selling American single malt of all time. We invite you to come check us out and enjoy what American single malt is all about.
Justin, you are the first head blender at Stranahan's, which is a pioneer in American single malt. And just to throw it out there, that's finally a legitimate thing. It's kind of the newest real whiskey in America, right? It's actually been identified and codified, if you will. And you come from an educational background, and we'll get into that into the interview. But you've been at Stranahan's for a while now. And you found yourself in a very interesting position to create the liquid that we have in the bottles in front of us. Alex, you have a long storied history in Ireland with Bushmills. To be the master blender at Bushmills, the oldest distillery in the world, is the claim there. You've worked your way through the ranks of the distillery too, so you've got a lot of experience and history with what Bushmills has been over the last, 20 plus years, right? So we're excited to talk to you both about the similarities, the commonalities between the different styles of whiskey, and also the differences, and really want to know how you feel about the future of both industries. I mean, I say both industries, even though it's a spirit industry, but there is differences. So let me start off with a quick little, question to both of you to kind of break the ice here with you. But what was your first aha whiskey moment that made you think, yeah, this is something I want to do. This is where I think my career is going to go. Maybe I want to spend my life doing this.
For me, it was the first moment I sat in the cooperage with Watson McCook 21 years ago. I had a dream of working here because of my grandfather and his love of whiskey, but literally sitting in the cooperage, listening to Watson talk about wood and the influence it had on the distillate that was created here at Bushmills, I fell in love pretty much straight away. Just that raw material that was used to create something absolutely wonderful, and how the American oak, the European oak, all could do different things and different flavors, different sizes of barrels, all of the different things that could influence the flavors that you end up with, the seasonings. It just felt like something you could create, something you could inspire to do more with. And I knew this was where I wanted to be.
And here you are.
Yeah, excellent.
It's awesome. Justin?
That's a great question. I think my earliest memory was living in Europe. I remember when I would go to dinner with my parents, and as a little boy, and they'd bring over a bottle of wine to the table, and you could see my mom and dad's eyes light up. And, I really realized that there's something about this thing, something that creates joy in people, something that enhances a moment. And I'm going to look into it. And as I got older, I, knew I was going to go into fermentation science and then ultimately become a whiskey maker. And I think it started just as a young kid, seeing how much joy and appreciation and improvement of fine beverage can bring to a moment.
So, Justin, when you were doing fermentation sciences, was the intention to do whiskey, or was it just fermentation in general, beer? What was the trend at the time?
Yeah, for whatever reason, boys think they're going to study sharks or dinosaurs. I just knew I was going to study booze, and that's the truth of it. And I was always hopeful to get into whiskey, but as we'll probably get into, 20 years or so, there wasn't really the craft whiskey movement in this country that there is today. So it was, looking like I was going to head towards beer, but very, very fortunate that I found my way into my first love, which is whiskey.
Yeah, I guess if we look at the calendar and go back, when you were getting into that phase, there was a really big boom in craft beer.
Oh, it was.
There were craft breweries popping up all over the place, every corner. So the fact that you ended up in the whiskey is fortunate for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Alex, I grew up in a Irish whiskey house. My family is mostly Irish, and my dad drank Irish whiskey every day, still does. How does Irish geography and heritage shape Bushmills, the single malt style, and how is it different from like your average Scotch whiskey?
The location to start with Bushmills is really important. So we're located right in the rugged north coast. So that wonderful, cool, damp Atlantic climate really influences that slow pace of our maturation. So it helps the whiskey develop its smoothness and its balance, but it really does not overpower at any time because the climate is so balanced. I suppose we never have a really warm summer. We never have a really, really cold winter. So it's much more consistent to give you that unique flavor profile, no matter when you want to bring the cask out of the warehouse. So it really influences the characteristics of our spirit as well, coming in from water source in St. Colum's Rill. It flows through the basalt stone, the same as the Giant's Causeway. So that minerality and that flavor profile is in the DNA of Bushmills right at the very beginning. So we can't make it anywhere else. But even from the historical point of view, we were granted our license in 1608 because of the flavour profiles that we were creating. So it was in recognition of that unique single malt flavour that was felt at that time to be the best way of making whiskey. And we've stayed true to that over all of the generations, no matter what was thrown at us. So the malt taxes came in and it made it really, really expensive to make single malt the way we do at Bushmills. But we felt it was the right way to make single malt, and we didn't steer away from that where many other distilleries did. Many other distilleries foundered, but we didn't. We're still here over 400 years later, and we believe that is the fact that we stayed true to the grain. And again, that process of how we look after that grain mix is very different from Scotland. We only use clean air to dry our barley, so it gives that really wonderful fruity flavour in our distillate. Whereas in Scotland, the majority of them use the smoke from the peats to dry it. So that smokiness sticks to the barley corn and comes the whole way through the process. And for me as a blender, I find I've nowhere to hide because our distillate is really so delicate and so fruity that triple distillation gives you, after the getting 86.4%, just gives you something really, really unique. Whereas a lot of the distilleries in Scotland do double distillation. So you're keeping a lot more of those harsh notes in your spirit. So for me, having the Bushmills way being that light, fruit-forward spirit gives me the opportunity to just bring in so many different cask profiles that complement our spirit, but never overpower. And for me, that's why Bushmills has been here for all of those generations. So as much as we want to innovate and we want to continue to grow the category, we always pay true that heritage to us. Everything we do, pay homage to those that came before, because they really knew what they were doing, making single malt the way we do. And it's really a unique style that people recognise in Bushmills. So no matter whether you're drinking it neat, putting it in a cocktail, adding a mixer, you'll always get Bushmills in the flavour. And that's what we want to keep. So for us, that's the most important part, is flavour.
Do you think having a lighter spirit profile makes it more difficult to kind of keep that flavor profile? Like I find I'm a chef by training, and so when I'm cooking, sometimes the lighter, fruitier things with more delicate flavors are more difficult because if you get off just a little bit, it shows in the final product. Does that make you nervous, or is it just kind of something you do now?
Something I've got used to over the years. Absolutely made me nervous many years ago. But you're absolutely right. Because of all of that delicate flavour, we can absolutely get it wrong. And that's where I think the Scotch category has a little bit of where the smoky character hides and masks so much. We have absolutely nowhere to hide. So we have to have perfection at every point in the game. So whether it's our distillate, the type of barrels, the seasoning, the length of time it's in cask, the care that we give the wood and the liquid that spends its time in there is really key to why Bushmills flavour profiles are consistent. So it's about, whether it's a 10, 12, 16 on the label, it's about the flavour profile that you expect from the first time you drank that is what you continue to taste today, tomorrow, and in the future. So it's that challenge for a master blender that you have to keep that flavour profile the same. Excites me every day because it is a challenge, but it is a worthwhile challenge when you get that distillate and you get the right flavour profile to release your bottling. It's just really exciting to see that all that hard work pays off and that dedication to quality is there in every drop.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick too. We've got some bottles here that were you guys sent us, and talking through each one of these, I'd like for you to kind of go through the flavor profile on that comment, because I'm sure there's some really delicate notes in here we can discuss.
Yep. So you have to your 10 or 12, 16 and 21. So our single malts are there. But for me, the 10-year-old is a starting whiskey for everyone. It really showcases Bushmills' DNA. That wonderful bourbon influence is there. Some sherry, but predominantly the bourbon gives you those light, fruity flavors that we're getting from our distillate. You get that lovely vanilla and milk chocolate coming in there, and it really does round the flavor of the profile, but it's really light and delicate for someone who's just starting out. You can move on then into a 3-wood with the other options there, which just add more layers of complexity. So there's something there for each range of where you're at in your journey through the whiskey, whether it's starting out or whether you're a matured palate and you want to experience more delicate fruits and see what your palate can recognize. So you realize the DNA of 10-year-old is there in the vanilla and the little bits of milk chocolate coming through. That citrus is there. But all of a sudden, you're getting that wonderful summer fruits maybe coming in your 21-year-old, that lovely jamberry in your 16, and then that lovely spice, that ginger coming in the likes of your 12-year-old Marsala. So at each stage, you recognize Bushmills, but we've elevated in a different flavour profile to continue that journey with you.
Man, I don't know about you guys, but
all of our mouths are watering, right? Let me before we pose that question over to Justin, let me follow it up. And confirm that through all of these age statements, it's the same mash bill. True, we have the same foundation.
Absolutely, baby Bushmills is there in every single one.
Right, and are there any Bushmill non-age statements that are in a core range?
In the single malt side, none non-aged. No. Our blends we have would be for our non-aged statements.
Yeah, I think this the Bushmills white label is a non-age, but that's a blend. That was a whiskey that got me into the journey. I mean, that's one of the first whiskeys I ever had. Right? If it weren't for that, I wouldn't be sitting here enjoying any of these. Yeah,
I bet you would.
Well, I hope I would.
You probably would be.
So let's pass it over to Justin and talk about American single malt, because it's similar, but it's got its own unique characteristics. So how does Colorado's altitude, your water source, how do those things affect your whiskey, and what are you looking for when you're doing your blending?
That's a great question. I always like to tell the story of how American single malt came to be codified by our government and recognized, because it's really an American craft whiskey story. The heritage distilleries, Kentucky or Tennessee, weren't really doing it. It was because you had this movement of micro distilleries and small players across the country who began doing it, that this thing really gained steam and got legs and got over the finish line with legislation. And I think because of that, you bring a lot of different personalities, right, spread across the country, all these wacky entrepreneurs that launched distilleries 15 or 20 years ago, all brought something to it. And a lot of us, right, wanted to reflect our sense of place a little bit. Unlike Scotland or Ireland, America is a little bit larger country. That means it has a little bit different breadth of agriculture that we can grow here. And of course, climate is quite a bit different. In our case, we're also a mile high, which is pretty unique in the single malt making world anywhere. So we really wanted to try to encapsulate Denver, Colorado. And one thing that made single malt very sensible for us is that this is one of the top 5 barley growing states in the United States. And with that, of course, we have great, excellent water sources here, whether it's snow melt that then trickles through the mountains and becomes spring fed, just a really, really beautiful water source. And it's no surprise that Colorado ended up becoming one of the epicenters of American brewing and malting know-how, right? And it was just a matter of time until somebody came around and decided to leave the hops out and take it one step farther and distill it. Right?
Amen.
And that's how we got to American single malt here at Stranahan's. It truly was an origin story based in our roots as brewers in this state. So yeah, this elevation presents a couple, I wouldn't say challenges, but certainly unique characteristics. The first is that it actually stays kind of temperate. Everybody thinks Colorado and you think going skiing and all that snow, but the reality is we don't, we have 300 something days of sunshine here. You certainly get cold snaps, but in general, it's a very pleasant place to live year round. And we have lower diurnal temperature swings at night because of the elevation. But I think most crucially of all, we have less humidity here. So very, very low level of humidity, which is pretty uncommon for the United States, for most of the United States. And with that, we elected to go with a lower barrel entry proof, about 110 proof, because our angels are most greedy and most thirsty for the moisture component of our angel share. So all of these things have been very deliberate decisions to reflect making what we know how to do best here in Denver.
That's really interesting about that, the entry point. I guess I never thought about it in considering humidity.
Mhm.
That's
So you then up proof as you age? Is that the case?
Absolutely. And it is incredibly reliable. We can say with a very high degree of certainty after 6 years or 10 years or 12 years where we expect proof to be. It is gradual and slow, but that's a really cool thing. As a blender, it certainly helps me forecast down the road quite a bit.
Yeah, you mentioned the wackiness of American single malt, and I think we've seen that across the single malts that we've had. It's one of those. There's going to be some really terrible American single malts that come out because people are being just super creative and just having fun with it, and then there's going to be some really great ones that just blow your mind. And I think that's where I think bourbon has a fairly restrictive category with respect to barrels and things like that, and mash and things like and mash. Whereas single malts have the same, even arguably a more restrictive mash bill, but the barrel and the creativity and the things that you're allowed to do with it, I think really have, it has potential to be some of the best whiskey in the world because of that creativity. And I think single malts are great for that. And so have you, so you've got your core line, but are you constantly like trying weird things with your whiskeys as well to try and push the limit?
To experiment, if you will?
Some will fail. That's okay. But some will just knock your socks off.
Well, we've done one recipe and one recipe only for basically 22 years now. That makes us pretty unheard of in craft whiskey in this nation for sure.
Yeah.
So our mash bill has never changed. We are 93% of our malt sourced from within 15 miles of the distillery.
holy shit.
So we've never messed with the mash bill.
Okay.
As fermentation people, right? Brewers, over the years, we've experimented a little bit with yeast and propagating different strains and things like that. But for the most part, my experimentation is on barrel finishing. We're a pretty well-oiled machine. We are committed to our mash bill, to our yeast, and to the primary aging in virgin char number 3 American white oak. So a barrel that would qualify to be used in bourbon or rye is what we decided to go with to make our American single malt. In part because we think it puts a little bit more America in American single malt. That barrel is what the American whiskey making tradition is most known for, right? The virgin char number 3 white oak barrel.
Yep.
So we've kind of put all that together, and a lot of my experimentation now, after 22 years, is looking at other types of casks that we can, finish or roll into our DNA and create new and exciting flavors.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to walk us through the
Go ahead.
the Stranahan lineup we have here?
Sure.
So-
The first one you have, I believe, is Blue Peak.
Yep, that's right.
Yep.
This is basically our introductory expression. This is the most affordable expression. This is one of our very favorites. It's our number one seller. And what I basically wanted to do was showcase to a lot of Americans who might be trying American single malt for the first time, just how fruity, especially stone fruit forward malt itself is. And so that was really our kind of love letter to the virgin charred American oak cask, and a nice, clean, bright, fruit forward malt recipe. So when you try that one, you're going to get a lot of that apricot and some very, very pretty notes, then layered with a little bit of the vanilla, butterscotch, things that Americans come to expect in a color bottle that is that dark, right? The aroma, I think, will be recognizable to a lot of bourbon drinkers, but it should introduce you to how fruity and pleasant malt is.
So this is the
Moving
bourbon
on.
Converter. Is that what you're going to call it?
I think so. It's certainly the gateway drug. Yeah.
Attaboy, we love it.
That.
I think next up we have the sherry cask. In my private life, I'm just a massive sherry malt fan from around the world. So it's really an honor and a joy to be able to have a little bit of a piece of the conversation in American single malt sherry now. I think it's one of the finest examples in this country of sherried whiskey of any variety. We added a 7-year age statement to it this year. It had been being 7 years for a couple of years now. We just finally decided to slap that on the label. And what we do is essentially 6 years primary aging in that charred white oak cask. And then I'll transfer it to a combination of first and second fill Pedro Jimenez or PX casks for anywhere from 1 to 2.5 additional years, and kind of blend all those things together. And what you end up with is this very viscous, very, I think, sweet, has a sucrosity to it that I love, but in a very natural and organic way. You get a lot of dark red, berry notes, and just really, really neat because it's a lot of American oak influence on with some sherry, which is a little bit different than any sherry options really available abroad, which are usually beginning their journey either directly into the sherry or maybe a used bourbon barrel for years and years before they see the sherry. So this has a lot of sweetness because of that primary American white oak barrel in the first place.
So then your 10 and 12-year-old, those are new oak, virgin oak.
So the 10-year is entirely virgin charred American white oak barrel for 10 long years in the Rocky Mountains. So it's a really, really interesting, thing to experience. Like I said, 110 entry proof. After 10 years, we're not quite at 125 proof, which is pretty much what Kentucky and Tennessee are entering their barrels at, right? So it takes us 10 long years to get to where they're starting. And so it makes a really nuanced, I think, subtle whiskey that's really nice. A lot of marshmallow, meringue, frosting, things like that. And then the last one is the 12-year-old. That one essentially spends 10 years in a virgin white American oak barrel and then 2 additional years in a combination of tawny and ruby port. So you get a little bit of that, beautiful port influence over the top of that American oak. I think you get a little bit of white grape, certainly some grapefruit. It's one of the finer noses in our portfolio, in my opinion. I really love that nose, and just a beautiful whiskey.
Sounds delicious. I think we'll definitely take some time and do reviews on all of these. But you have a question?
I did. I wanted just for context for the listeners. So Stranahan's is proofing up in 10 to 12 years, and on the other side of the world, over in Ireland, Alex, 10 to 12 years. Where's your proof?
So our 10 to 12 are at 40%. So what's that, 80 with yours? So it's for us, we have a range of obviously from 40 right up to cask strength now out there for Bushmills in their Causeway collections or private reserves. So we try to have something there for absolutely everyone. But in the range for today, we're all at 40. So it gives us something. Actually, maybe the 40. Let me just double check I'm right. Yeah, we have our Marsala is 40 as well. We do a 43 of it, but we haven't got it today. But yeah, it's trying to find something in there that suits everybody's palate and then offers something for those more experienced in the whiskey journey So we do have the cask strength out there, which for me is absolutely delightful. Once you go to a warehouse and you draw the cask and you taste it, and it's the way it's been born and the way it's grew up, it's really exciting to see all of those flavors as you bring it down in strength, and the more delicate ones start to reveal themselves. So say there's something there in the Bushmills collection for everyone, depending on where you're at.
Well, what I want, so in Colorado, 10 years, his proof in the barrel goes up 15 proof, right? So 7 to 10%, you're saying you're increasing in those 10 years. Bushmills in Ireland, if I take a cask of whiskey and you guys put it for 10 years, the proof goes up or down, the ABV.
Or goes down.
And how much do you lose? How much ABV do you lose in 10
we
years?
We have roughly 2% per annum is the way we work it, but it can be, depending on the type of cask, it can be more. So like your bourbon cask would be more like 2% plus 3. Your sherry casks would be more onto the 2%. The contact with the wood, the size of the barrel makes a huge difference. But yeah, our losses are very good. I have to say we aren't as bad as we would be in some other parts of the world. So we maintain the cask, and having the ability to buy our casks, like our sherry casks, our port casks, and our Madeira, where we actually get them constructed for us, gives us a really good base for the quality of the wood that we're getting. So we actually can trace back to the forest where the casks or the wood has come from. It's air dried for us, the cask is built, and then the seasoning's actually placed in there. So we know we're getting the best possible cask we can get. We know the thickness of the staves. All of that information helps you then maintain as much as you possibly can in there.
I think it's neat that if you took the same cask, with the same whiskey, and took one to Ireland and one to Colorado, 10 years later, they are
environmental. Well, let's pause and take a second and let's go through each side real quick, because we've got pours for both sides, right? We've got a Bushmills here. This is a 16, I believe.
Yep.
And then we also poured which one of the Stranahan is
the 10.
The 10-year-old. So why don't we go through the Bushmills and talk through those notes real quick, all four of us, and Alex, if you will, and then we'll switch over to Justin and talk about the 10-year-olds. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Perfect.
Good.
All right.
So you guys go first.
You want to walk us through this, or do you want us just to go right at it?
Oh no, I'll tell you a little bit about it, and then we can go in there. So our 16-year-old was created back in 1997. So it's the first of our 3 woods. So it's bourbon and sherry for 16 years. A marriage, certain recipe of what we keep close to our heart. And then we laid it down in these most amazing ruby port casks for the first time to create something really special. And we found it only needed between 6 and 12 months to really emphasize that port, but not lose the bourbon and sherry. So have a little nose. It's really robust. That 3 wood is evident straight away. You get the evidence there of that lovely treacle toffee mingling with the sweet spices, the hints of vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg there. But it's when this one is tasted, let it just sit in your tongue, let it pass over all your cheek, the back of your mouth. It really delights the palate.
So fruity in the nose as well. My goodness.
Yeah. So when I taste it, it starts out really like purple fruit, rolls into some of that vanilla, and then the finish is where I'm really getting that malt character. So it kind of transitions through the palate.
Really does. You're getting the peaches,
nice.
You get the mango, you get hints of toasted almond in there. It's just, for me, the finish is just that beautiful jam berries. It's just that sweetness that sits there and lingers, and waves of milk chocolate. But it's so smooth, so delicate on the palate. For me, it's one you just want to go back and sip again and sip again and sip again.
I think being triple distilled in that ABV point, you really can't just wash it around. You're not going to get punched in, and your sinus isn't going to blow out because it's 55 or 60%.
100%.
And so the next thing you know, you go through a glass real quick.
You can you can swish it around. That's exactly what I did too. From the front to the back, whatever you want to do. There's so many flavors that are coming out of that.
Right.
I mean, especially on the fruit side, like the apricot and
I like that from the front palate all the way through the finish. It changes every second. You're getting new and unique flavors. They all kind of roll together. It's a wonderful whiskey.
Yeah.
Very well made.
Even to breathe in through your mouth just after you've tasted it, that wonderful sweetness almost comes back, and that warm just sensation that you get at the back of your throat is just gorgeous. It just really, that sweetness and that spice just marry together so well in the time frame that we have given the port. So it's really fresh port cask that we're using, so that really does impact after such a short period of time of finishing. but you never lose the Bushmills DNA. So you can recognize the flavor profiles from our distillate, as well as the influence it's had on the bourbon, the influence from the sherry casks, and the port reveals itself as well. And for me, that's a perfect example of a well-balanced whiskey, that you get all of the different layers and none of them overpower. They may reveal themselves at different times, but they're all there complementing each other.
I would agree with that.
Easy whiskey to drink.
Yeah.
You know, before we transition to the Stranahans and do the same with Justin, I want to ask a quick question for both of you, because we've kind of talked around it a little bit. You've mentioned it. What is the difference for each of you between a second maturation and a finish? Or is there a difference? Is there a timeline? 12 months means it's a second maturation, or are those synonymous in your vocabulary?
Question.
This earlier time for me is definitely finishing. So whether that's between 3 months and 2 years, maybe even, would be in around the finishing for us for the majority of our whiskies. We're pushing it to 3 years, but after that, it's absolutely secondary maturation, because the influence the cask have after that period of time are totally different. So it's definitely something you can play about with, and you can start out with an idea that you're only going to finish it. But that's the exciting thing about wood and about casks. You end up wanting to leave it longer and longer just to see what could happen. And it potentially moves into that second maturation phase without you even realizing.
That's a great question. I would agree with Alex wholeheartedly. But I will say sometimes when you use that unused primary aging barrel, it kind of changes, because that is always going to be your dominant note. So for our example, we're coming out with a 14-year-old, and it's going to have like 5 years of finishing time, and I'm still going to call that finishing, because I think 9 years primary in that charred white oak barrel is still the dominant note. Now we have other barrels at 3 years. I would absolutely start calling that secondary aging.
Huh. Yeah.
So your response is more on the influence. It really, depending on how hard or how heavy that influence is on that from that second barrel, as to whether you would consider it finishing or second maturation.
That's right. And I think it's just a little bit of a unique animal. Again, going back to a virgin char number 3 American white oak barrel, that is a lot of influence, right?
True.
Yeah.
True.
So that is a lot of influence to contend with.
And on that note, let's try the 10-year-old, because that is 10 years in number 3 char, new American oak, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So that's the only barrel it's seen. It is.
That's it.
I would argue it's almost the opposite of the Bushmill 16, because the Bushmill 16 had lots of different barrels and different flavors added to it through the finishing process, whereas this is distillate, barrel, and time. That's all it's there.
That's it.
And
don't forget our lovely El Dorado Springs water up here.
There you go.
And it's fully represented in that whiskey. So I took a sip of it while you were talking at the end there, and it's got this.
Which bottle?
You definitely, it's the 10-year-old. You don't have a lot of that super fruit sweet, but it's got these vanillas. It's got a little bit of oak, the tannins coming through. It's got some caramels in there.
I think you're speaking for him. Let him tell us about the.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, you describe how you say it. Sorry, I was intrigued.
That's brilliant, but maybe it's not.
Sorry about that.
No, I appreciate that a lot. That's what I do it for. So keep going.
Music to his ears.
Well, no, I mean, really, what do you, when you bottle this, what is kind of your flavor profile that you're targeting to get consistent batch to batch?
Yeah. So of course, at 10 years, in this style of barrel, you do have a gradient of flavors. We can find some that stay on that a little bit fruitier side. I get a little bit almost like banana Fosters in there.
Yes.
That I really like. And then you can have it up where you have a lot of oak influence. You find barrels at different parts of your warehouse that have really had become oak dominant, but they're really helpful for a little bit of body and a little bit of course, texture and spice on the back end. So I try to create everything you just said. I try to include it there. Sometimes I'll even, if I find some that have stayed a little bit on the green side, you'll get a little bit of green apple in there. And if you can incorporate fruit with notes like butterscotch and toffee and caramel, right? I think a lot of us have had desserts and candies in our lifetime whether, in America, it's a caramel covered apple or whatever,
Yeah.
strudel or whatever it is. And people really seem to appreciate that marriage, that intermingling of a little bit of fruit flavors with, of course, those rich baking spice and dessert notes.
My impressions on the Stranahan, absolutely, you can tell that what barrel it was in. That barrel is in there. It's up front. First nose had that oaky vanilla sweetness, but then after I tasted it and went back for another nose, I also got a little bit of citrus note, and it got a lot lighter, and it just it opened up.
I got a lot of fruit on the palate.
Right.
It was very good. But I do get the DNA from the white oak, and I get
Definitely.
the vanillas, and
Sure.
it's just got a really it's a great American whiskey. I can see bourbon drinkers finding it very approachable, but it's not bourbon.
No.
And
We gotta
so
convert
that'll be an interesting
A lot of marzipan too on that
yeah,
nose.
yeah, which we all love marzipan.
Heck yeah.
We
do.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great you bring that up. I think Stranahan's is unabashedly tried to sit at that intersection of bourbon and single malt. We're grain off, double pot distilled, so that's a departure from American whiskey making tradition, which is typically grain on, column distilled, right? And when we do, we really hope that the bourbon drinkers of this country will give us a shot, because I think we're friendly with that style of barrel we use. I think they'll really find there's a lot to like. If you can easily transition from having a bourbon. If you're going to grab one American single malt, Stranahan's makes a lot of sense for you to start. And then I have to put on my fanboy hat to what Alex is working on over with the 16. One thing that Americans are just really not that experienced in is multiple wood, right? And then multiple finishes on top of it. We're having a discussion about, is it finishing or is it secondary aging? Well, Alex is sometimes creating blends out of 3 or 4 different styles. And that is a whole new world for the American whiskey drinker to really fall down. And man, life's better when you do. I hope.
Agreed.
I hope everybody dives into malt.
Let's get into some of the cask maturation topics and go through. And let's start with Alex. I know you've got some very old whiskey in some casks, and how do you go through the process of saying, yes, that's ready to bottle? And some of these really old ones, where do you get to a point where this has gone bad and we maybe shouldn't use it?
Better rack it again.
Yeah. Or just how do you manage that kind of older stock and make sure?
Hey, if you need taste testers, let us know.
Right. I mean, you can't just go through the day being drunk all day, right?
No.
You need help.
Well, I am pleased to say that on the over 500,000 casks here, there are none of them I would say that are not good. They are all absolutely amazing. So
Correct.
it's a
Wow.
array,
Okay.
an array of ages. But yeah, to be the distillery that released the oldest ever Irish single malt at 46 years old this year was an absolute phenomenal delight for me. It is absolutely stunning. You compare it to, I don't think I've anything I could compare it to. It's just so amazing that the sherry influence coming from it, and the fact that we were able to look after it for 46 years. I have the great privilege for the last 21 years being able to see that transition happening. And it's that care and dedication to flavour that Bushmills is really good at, is how we can look after these really aged whiskies. We have a family of coopers here as well. We have our 3rd and 4th generation coopers here in Alistair and Chris, and they care for these casks like they're their own children. They're up every day making sure the casks are tight, there's no issues with it, and having that ability to, even back 46 years ago, buy our casks from a company who have the same principles as us in quality. So the wood is sourced, the seasoning is perfect, the making of the cask is the best they can possibly do for us, gives us that opportunity to lay the liquid down, to leave it in the one position in Warehouse 8, or first of our warehouses that we have here, is something really special. So it's right at the heart of the distillery, and we can look after that whiskey to ensure that it gives the best opportunity. But it tells us when it's ready. Some of the casks that were filled in the same date as that 46-year-old went off and was used in 10-year-olds, 16s, 21s, and blends, all of the different times, because each one is unique as you and I. So even twins have differences. each of these casks are given the time at Bushmills so they can be the best version of themselves. And for me, that's the exciting thing. So I'm laying liquid down now that I'll never get to taste in its finished product. But that's exciting to think that the master blender after me or the one after that will have a 46-year-old or maybe even older, because of the dedication of the people of Bushmills and their time here. They want to ensure that they only produce the best possible whiskies. So when the cask is exhausted or had its day, it'll tell us. Just like if you think of your own life when you were a kid, you were full of energy, you running about all day. That's like a young whiskey. You get to the stage where you want to settle down, get married, have kids of your own. And then you go on to your older age where things get a little bit quieter and you just want your slippers and you just want to relax and chill out. That's like the journey of a cask. So you may still want to sip your whiskey. You may want it as a cocktail when you're younger, but you're happy to have it neat by the fireside as you get older. Our whiskies take that journey as well. So when they get to the end where they say, I've given you all I'm giving you, it doesn't matter if you leave me here 2 more days, I'm not going to taste any different. This is it. We know that's the time to release. So people ask me why it was a 46 and not a 50, because it was ready at 46.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that story. And I'm a storyteller at work, so I'm picturing this whole thing from like I'm like, I've never heard that reference before as a family and your slipper. That's amazing, and I can see your Coopers tucking the cask in at night, making sure reading a story, making sure, hey, tomorrow's your big day. It's time to get up. That's an amazing story. I absolutely love that.
They are like our children. Like I always say, I have over 500,000 children I have to look after every day, but they're all in different stages of their life. So some of them need a little bit more care. Other ones you can leave to their own devices, and some are just being born. So it's part and parcel of the whiskey life and the whiskey family, just like we live our own. They are living, breathing things when they're in the cask. So they live and breathe like us. We've even experimented, if you think on the Angel Share, by wrapping casks in plastic to see if you can contain that liquid in. But the cask can't breathe.
Keep it going.
It's just like wrapping me in plastic. I'll just pass out on the floor. So the whiskey didn't change. So having that ability to breathe in and out and gain those characters from the wood and expel those ones that you don't want makes the journey of whiskey all that more important. So it's just like your own life.
Yeah. Do you, when you're planning and filling barrels, are there barrels that you specifically pick with the intention of going 25 plus years, or you just fill your barrels and they just tell you that these ones are going to go longer?
It's a bit of both. So you'll always be filling for the future because you have to produce 10 years old for 10 years or 20 years or whatever that happens to be. You're always laying down liquid for the future for that brand, but you never know if that 100 casks will all make it to be the 10-year-old. You might only get 50 out of that batch, and other ones need to lay longer. So they end up maybe in our 12-year-old or 16 or 21, or they lay longer because they need that time. And that's how you end up with a 46-year-old. It was never the vision when we laid the liquid down 46 years ago to have a 46-year-old. Those casks were identified during their time as being something really unique and special. So they were left that little bit longer. So you want to lay down enough for all of your brands that you have there at the moment. You want to lay some down for the future for something new that you'll innovate. But you also have that risk that you have to play with, that they may not reach the flavour profile in the time that you need. So you have to lay a little bit more down to cover that.
Interesting.
Very, very good. So, Justin, Stranahan's has the oldest American single malt, a 12-year. And so in most cases, like if you're putting a whiskey in new American oak barrels in Kentucky, by 12-year-old, you've over oaked it.
Milk's gone bad.
It's cooked.
Milk's gone bad.
How do you, with your altitude, with your conditions, how long do you see reasonably to keep whiskey in those barrels, in the new oak, without going too far into the profile? And do you see in another 30 years having some 46-year-old from the original barrel that may still be interesting to bottle?
I think no question. I think this climate, this elevation, and this low barrel entry proof, and this low humidity, and all those things we talked about actually set us up incredibly well to lead higher age statements that you've seen out of Kentucky or Tennessee.
Agreed. Yeah.
We already have, like I mentioned, a 14-year in the works, and we have plans to go all the way up to 2 decades, 21 years. So the original question of how far we can take that first fill, that primary age in the virgin white charred American oak barrel, I think there is a limit on that at some point. I think it's probably around a dozen years or so. So if we ever came out with a 46-year-old, you can rest assured it would have spent 30 plus, in a secondary finishing cask for sure. But I do think everything about our warehouse conditions here set us up particularly interesting to really push the envelope in American age statements, not just in American single malt, but frankly, from anything coming out of this country.
And then one quick question for both of you. Justin, we'll start with you. What is the most underrated cask that you work with for all your finishing?
Ooh, underrated is a good question, because the ones that jump to mind are probably the ones everybody think about. But
yes.
I absolutely love the fact that in our larger Proximal family, the larger portfolio, we can get our hands on some beautiful barrels that used to age, some agave, some tequila, or some mezcal. But in this case, the tequila barrels are just absolutely gorgeous. We've got French oak, Colombian oak, American oak that aged Reserva de la Familia, which is one of the best, I think, tequilas in the world. And it just adds such a unique layer element. I use it quite a lot. Anytime I need to go find something that has a lot of vanilla, a lot of roundness, has a touch of pineapple to it, you find very quickly as a blender that notes like that are very usable in almost every single expression, right? Those never cost you. So underrated for me is a little bit of a tip of the cap to the unique barrels that I'm able to get my hands on here in the larger Proximal portfolio.
Very good. And same question to you, Alex.
For me, because we're very lucky here in Ireland, we don't have to use oak. I would have to say the acacia wood. It was something very new to us that we'd never used before. It was really exciting to be able to use it. But by goodness, does it give you the quality of flavor? It's really rich, spice, floral, berries. It's gorgeous on the palate, that wonderful mouthfeel. It's almost creamy in its making. It's honey and floral notes come through, and the whiskey just really brings out that wonderful dried fruit. It's just an absolute delight. We're very lucky to say that we can use something like that where many others don't have that opportunity. So it's definitely more known for being used in furniture. So for me, to be able to have something like that come into for whiskey was just really fantastic.
Acacia wood, that's amazing.
I wouldn't have thought, yeah. I mean, that's interesting.
That is very cool.
I want to flip it on over and ask a couple of questions about the category, the industry. So, Justin, American single malt is now legit, right? It's like Steve Martin in The Jerk finding himself in the phone book. Like, you are now literally somebody. You're recognized.
Mark always finds a way to put a movie.
I got to reference movies, everybody. But so now that it is, and thank God it is. I mean, we're excited about that, about being here in the States. But with it now being a formal, recognized category of whiskey here in the States, and Stranahan's having been around for 20 plus years already, so it's not like you haven't led the charge. But now that it's formal and recognized, and it is a thing, how does Stranahan see themselves continuing to lead the charge and to help that industry grow? Because our goal is to convert all these bourbon drinkers.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate that, the way we have always done it, I mentioned one recipe and one recipe only since 2004, fell under this criteria. We don't have to change a thing about how we make our whiskey, and it meets every criteria in this legislation of American single malt. So for us, it's largely to keep doing what we're doing. I think we've been instrumental. I think we carried the torch in a lot of regards for this whole category. We are the largest and number one selling American single malt. We are basically a third of the market share in this small category. So we're going to continue to push age statements. I think that's very important to signify that this industry has grown up. The craft whiskey making industry in this country has kind of grown up, but also hopefully will attract some international malt drinkers, right? Because we know age statements matter a lot, whether you're drinking an Irish whiskey or a Scotch or a Japanese whiskey. A lot of international malt drinkers expect to see 10, 12, 16, whatever it might be. So that's some way we're certainly innovating and pushing the envelope and leading the charge in American single malt.
Yeah, we're excited about that.
Yeah.
Alex, on the flip side of it, Bushmills is just now doubled its production. Right, you're cranking out more juice than you ever have, and is that fueling innovation? Is it allowing you to be more creative, or are you're doing that because you have to just to keep the core ranges going? What's the direction in Bushmills and their double production now up in Causeway?
We are so pleased to be able to say that we had to build a new distillery because of the love of the Irish category growing so phenomenally well over the last 10, 20 years. People have fallen back in love with the Irish whiskey, and to keep the core range that we have, we needed to lay down more liquid, and we just couldn't do that with the distillery we had. So we had to build a second one because obviously the land where we positioned the current distillery, we couldn't expand it any further. So the only way to do it was build the Causeway distillery. It absolutely does open up the room to be able to do a little bit more innovation as well, which is exciting because it could be for now, it could be for 10 years, 20, 30, who knows down the way before that innovation actually becomes a reality. But to say that the Irish category really has went full circle, where we were the number one whiskey of the world, we fell out of favour because of prohibition, world wars, people making whiskey and calling it Irish, and it really wasn't good. Scotch took our title, but we are fighting our way back. We want it back again, and Bushmills is ready for that fight now. We have the E in there in whiskey for the excellence of the whiskey that we make here at Bushmills. So we definitely want to see the category continue to strive to showcase what we can do all across the world. We are now opening into new markets every day that we can potentially reach further afield than we could before because we have that little bit more liquid to play with. So it's really nice to see that Bushmills could potentially be the go-to for a lot more people throughout the world when they look for an Irish whiskey. And for those that aren't into whiskey yet, the innovation side can help me inspire them to try a whiskey, whether that's finding out what they drink, and maybe they're more a wine-based drinker, they're more a beer drinker. Where is their palate sitting if it's not with whiskey? And we can create new things. So having that knowledge transfer from our consumers really is a focus for us to ensure that our innovation is in the right path as well, as much as what we see happening, it's what they want. So it gives us a real opportunity to really inspire more Irish whiskey drinkers.
Wow,
man. Yeah, and we were at Causeway, but the distillery wasn't there when we were
No.
We probably would have been able to tour it at the time. But looking at the camera, I see you both sitting there, and you both represent the oldest and the youngest traditions in malt whiskey, right? Let's just Bushmills being the oldest, Stranahan's now that American single malt is an actual tradition of whiskey. How do you see those two different industries, those two different traditions, if you will, challenging Scotch? And that's a question coming from, a Scotch lover here. We're Scotch for Dummies, so we do love our Scotch, but I think we love our malt whiskey at heart. So how do you see those two traditions challenging or working with the Scotch industry? I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on it.
I suppose from Bushmills' point of view, we were misunderstood for a long time for the fact that people had an image of Irish whiskey versus Scotch whiskey, but we do create wonderful whiskies, whether it's in Scotland or in Ireland. So I think it's together with Stranahan's, we are really elevating single malts. There's a personal palate for everyone. So whether you are a Scotch drinker or you like that more lighter, delicate, fruity flavours of Bushmills or Stranahan's, there's something there for you. We are steeped in tradition at Bushmills. We have stayed true to the grain, and people love that empowerment of history and that dedication to perfection that Bushmills has. So that love of the brand, and the people that work here feel like they own this brand. So they come to work every day to deliver the best possible whiskey they can. So working side by side the industry and continuing to have that growth there and getting more and more people to come and visit our distillery to see how it's made really is inspiring people to move over to single malts and to inspire things a little bit differently than what they maybe did in the past because of their parents or their grandparents and what they drank. So we all want to break out of that niche market that we'd have been in before and try and experience new things for ourselves. whether that is in the Stranahans or Bushmills, there's a journey there for you to be able to take part of.
One thing that we have run into making single malt in the United States is the sheer amount of people that say, "Oh, you make single malt? Oh, I don't like peat. I don't like smoke." So I wouldn't.
Oh, man.
And you guys know this better than anybody, that there is this massive perception that all single malt is smoky, right? No matter where it's coming from, and at least there is to a lot of Americans, it seems like. So, we've tried to just get people to try it, and their eyes kind of light up. And I think Irish is a great example of that. So many people have made up their mind about Irish whiskey when you go back and you re-explore, and it's just a stunning liquid. And the Bushmills is the greatest distillery in the world, in my opinion. The New Causeway Distillery is a cathedral to the craft of whiskey making, to 4 centuries of whiskey making. It's unbelievable. So you have all these stories all over the world that are happening, and everyone's important to dive into it and learn why they chose to make single malt the way they do.
Wow, that was fantastic.
I know.
That was really great answers for both of you guys. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the core ranges from both sides, and to talk about that same segue in a sense. So we've got people that I'm not even going to pick a category. They're just new to whiskey. So Justin, we'll start with you first. So on your core range, like what would you pick and say if you're new to single malt, this is what you need to start with if you had to suggest something?
Oh, the old favorite child question, huh?
Your favorite child. That's correct. With slippers on.
For new whiskey drinkers.
With slippers on.
For is somebody coming over from Scotch, or somebody coming over from bourbon, or just a first time?
I think new to whiskey, because if you do it that way, it's a little harder. I mean, you could probably pick it from a bourbon, et cetera, but just say new to whiskey in general. Like what's your entry?
We would go Blue Peak. I love that whiskey. That is kind of our introductory one. This is also our lowest alcohol by volume expression at 86 proof. And as much as we're so used to alcohol content as regulars, somebody new to this, I find it is important to have an offering in the 43 to 46%, somewhere nice and low, and they can start to experience flavors and aromas and not just feel that burn right off the bat, right? And so I always do like to be a little bit delicate with first timers.
For me, it's always going to be our 10-year-old. For me, it just represents a really easy drinking whiskey for someone who's just starting their journey. It's that wonderful marriage of the bourbon and sherry that's in there, but that wonderful bourbon influence that gives you the sweetness. So that creamy milk chocolate, the aromas of that wonderful fresh vanilla, but you get little bits of honeysuckle in there. You get a little bit of the crisp green apple coming in. So it's fruity, but not overly sweet for the palate. So that when you move up into the sherries, that it can be a little bit heavier in the sweet notes. But this, for me and our 10-year-old, is very well balanced, very sweet, but not over sweet. And it just gives you that wonderful aroma and taste of that lovely toasted oak. So it just introduces the palate to more of the lighter notes and introduces you to a journey where you can just continue to build and build and build.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I'd want some right now. Actually, it sounds delicious.
Are they pouring it right now?
I think they're pouring it over there. So,
What the hell, right?
Thinking about future whiskeys, is there something that's coming out of the woodwork that we don't know yet that you're really excited about that you can talk about?
Oh, that's a hard question.
No, it's a question's coming.
On the hot seat.
It's one of those ones that you want to tell about all the new things you're working on, and at the same time, you can't tell what you want to do.
Yeah.
One of the ones I suppose has excited me recently that we have released would be Mizunara. So the Japanese oak was so exciting to be able to get a hold of the casks, never mind anything else, because it's very difficult to get the wood. I knew they were going to be really hard to work with because they translate to mean water oak. So the tree is twisted. Everything is absolutely wrong about the wood itself. It's going to be good for whiskey. But wow, the flavor profile that we were able to achieve from them was just out of this world.
Really?
The casks themselves work really well in the climate that we have here. So that lovely floral freshness, there's hints of cinnamon coming off it. There's layers of peaches and pears and that just sweetness coming in from the honey. It just blows my mind to think that such a wonderful tree can turn into something so unique and great for whiskey, and it really does impart wonderful flavors. It should be all wrong, but it works.
It should be. All right, Justin, you're on the hot seat.
Yeah, I've alluded to it a little bit. I think you're going to continue to see us push that age statement. If we don't get it out by Christmas, you'll see it in Q1. So there'll be another addition in the Mountain Angel range of a higher age statement. That's a lot of fun for us to really be learning this as we go. How far can we push this thing? So that's great. And of course, one thing that we've always done here is what we call distillery exclusives. So we now have a tasting room up in Aspen, Colorado as well, because that's where our founders are from. And so we're always doing one-off, super limited edition, pretty crazy finished expressions that are really one of one. And we go out of our way to kind of showcase the versatility that single malt can have with those. So those are two, without revealing too much, that always working on and always excited about.
That's exciting.
He forgot to mention the one for Scotch for Dummies.
Oh, Scotch for Dummies bottle.
I'm just not yet. I'm plugging.
That was a nice segue.
You know a guy now, so
I know.
It's not a bad thing. It's all right.
No.
All right, are we on the lightning round? What's going on here? All right. So I guess we'll start. We'll just go real quick. Lightning round. So chill filtering. Alex, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Justin?
maybe.
That's fair. You can do a maybe on that one. That's fine.
Give him
favorite aroma in maturation.
All
Justin?
Wood. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good, Alex. Go ahead.
Yeah, wood aroma. I just absolutely love the variations that you can get.
Justin, what about you?
I'm going to give you a different one. The smell when you first fill a barrel with white whiskey is one of my favorites. And it means you're making whiskey. That's what that means. And,
so I want a candle of that.
In 2 seconds or in 15 seconds, how do you describe that aroma?
Oh, I don't. It's there's a thinness to it. You still have things like dry erase marker, right? Things like that go away over the aging process, but really just kind of fruity and just makes me
or
excited.
heaven's fine too.
Future heaven.
What's one blending tool you can't live without?
Ooh.
Alex?
My whiskey thief.
Yeah.
I like my little pitcher of water.
Ah.
Yep.
We got one of those. Hiding behind them. Gotta have it. But I wish I had a need for a whiskey thief. I would carry it with me everywhere.
Brand it.
It's your go-to. You can't go to a warehouse without it because you just never know what you're going to find in a cask, and you have to try it.
Yeah. I haven't seen that one in a while. Let's see what you're doing.
How often do you go into the warehouse not thinking that you're going to pull a sample and actually pull a sample?
Oh, I'm literally in the warehouse every single day, but it's more you go in and there's a cask sitting beside the one you plan to go to, and you're like, maybe I'll try it today. And when you try it, it's like, yeah, amazing to taste something you weren't expecting that day. That one was supposed to be a couple of months down the line, and all of a sudden it's achieved something a lot quicker. So that's exciting.
That's awesome.
That's fair. I think I would just be going around.
Right.
I bet that would taste great.
Sean works a lot of overtime.
There's some compliments on that one. That
Totally really fine. That's the one I'm looking for.
Sean works overtime.
I'm looking for the neglected child at the back of the room.
That's right.
Like, I'll go see what that guy's doing. So we won't make you pick from somebody else's lineup, but what is your desert island dram from your whiskey lineup? Do you have one, Alex?
Me?
Yeah.
That would be our 16-year-old. I absolutely love it. It's the only favorite.
That's what I thought.
It's really good. Justin, what about you?
I would say one of our snowflakes. If you've never heard of those, this is our once a year expression we release on the first Saturday of December. And we call it snowflake because no two are ever alike. So the blender gets to spend all year long with this one release in mind. And there's no, you don't have to reproduce a flavor ever. In fact, you shouldn't. So the creativity to just really go wild is what makes Snowflake so special for me. And I would say 2023's edition was what we call Pyramid Peak. We named them all after a famous mountain here in Colorado. And that one used some mezcal casks and some formerly peated Scotch casks from Islay. So,
Interesting.
without telling which one, they were quarter casks. They were quite small. And
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
I think that would be my desert island whiskey.
Sounds good.
Cool.
I did try that one. It was very good. Pretty sure that was the one I tried. All right. Mark, you want to wrap us up?
The unit. I want that last lightning round. I leave that. I want to hear what they had to say.
All
about
right.
that.
So I missed one. The Dream Cross Atlantic Collaboration Cask.
Ooh. That's a good one.
That was the tequila cask. To have a tequila owner and to be able to see the similarities between distillation and then actually get to see what that imparted into an Irish whiskey. Phenomenal.
Interesting.
Very cool.
Huh.
Oh man. I think we're excited about Mizunara. We've also acquired some casks, so that certainly qualifies. And then, our climate here, it's a little drier. I don't think they're going to do nearly as well. I think they're going to be more ornery here, but it should create
they're going to shrink and crack and twist.
Yeah. But it should create a little bit of a unique Mizunara profile that maybe we haven't seen yet in the space.
So as we draw to a close, I want to definitely give you both an opportunity to speak to those bottles and projects. We kind of already asked and alluded to them, but is there anything else in the foreseeable future, let's say 12 to 24 months, that lovers of your whiskey can get excited about that's coming out down the road? Any kind of projects or collaborations or what you're working with? Let's start with Alex. God, chivalry is alive.
Thank you. Well, for Bushmills, we are basically wanting to educate people as much as we possibly can. So working together with the likes of Stranahans to showcase really what single malts is all about and to really showcase we are fantastically wonderful whiskies and we can compete against the Scottish category and outdo them, if I'd be as bold enough to say. So having that education out there for people to understand that. We have collaborated along with Melbourne as well. So having those recognitions of those wonderful, trendy, really fantastic brands that recognise Bushmills for its quality as well is for people to really get excited behind Bushmills again and really get deep diving into our whiskies and experience what Bushmills is all about. And of course, come and visit us because we have the most amazing distillery here, grain to glass, and you get to see every single part of the process over here. We've been doing it for over 400 years and we'll continue to do it the same way as our grandparents have done for many, many generations.
Yeah, that's a mouthful. 400 years.
Just
Good
over
Lord.
400,
No big
400
deal.
years. Justin, is there anything for the challenge of converting these bourbon lovers over to American single malts, or what's exciting?
It's not peat. It's fine.
It's right.
Well, you've got a new single snowflake coming out,
Right.
In just
in just a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, we got Snowflake will be out in same as always, first Saturday of December. But one that's right around the corner is what we call our Diamond Peak or our Black Label expression. So we take the concept of Snowflake where we explore finishes from all over the world. But this one, we stick with one specific finish and put it out and change that up every single year. So 2025 is right around the corner. Drum roll, please. That will be what we call a local brewer's cask. So malt on malt, right? We age our Stranahans. What we do, a boomerang program where we loan them free of charge to some of our favorite local, long-standing and well-respected craft breweries here in Colorado. They age a beer, and then they give us our own barrels back, and we once again put Stranahans into them. And it just creates this layering that's absolutely wonderful. So that's coming out very, very imminently.
That's very cool.
So is that a Coors cask or?
I hope not.
No,
man.
We leaned into a lot more. There's coffee stout, there's wild peach ale, there's sour in there. There's some barley wine, of course. So I really wanted to try to incorporate and challenge myself as a blender to try to incorporate multiple flavors and styles of beer, not just to have it taste like an imperial stout.
Well, I have to say thank you. I, for one, and for all four of us from Scotch for Dummies, thank you very much for your time. You guys are doing what we love. I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years, reviewing whiskey, and we do love our single malt.
Yep.
we have a place in our heart for American single malt, Irish whiskey, obviously Scotch, and to be able to talk to folks like you is really exciting for us. We learn a lot. We hope to open up and educate the people that listen to the show, because they are misguided a lot, and I think we're on the front edge and trying to help you educate them. But exciting to talk to you guys. I hope someday we actually have an opportunity to cross paths and actually share a dram in person. But I want to say thank you. And if there's anything that Scotch for Dummies can do for either Bushmills or Stranahan's, you know where we're at. We're here and proudly screaming, drink more single malt.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate your time.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you for making such great whiskey.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for making great
cilantro.
whiskey. Cilantro.
Cheers.
Quick plugs to the patrons and discords and socials of the world. If you're catching this on YouTube or on Spotify or on your podcast or whatnot, if you're not a patron, give a thought to becoming one. We do a lot of neat things for our patrons, and we've got some single cask barrel picks that our patrons are going to get their hands on. Our Discord server is always out there, and there's always a ton of conversation and communication going on out there. So you want to get involved in our Discord server. And hey, we're out and about. We're doing tastings and
Picking barrels, and
we're doing all kinds of stuff. So keep your eye out for us. Keep your eye out for Bushmills and Stranahan's. Guys, cilantro.
Here we go.